Welcome, Steve, to Henry Watts Real Estate and Lifestyle Magazine. I am honored that you're here to talk to us about life changes that put you in a situation that you probably never experienced, never anticipate, being unsheltered, being homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important to let people know that this can happen to you as well. So I want to talk to you about your experience and how this process came about, that you were unsheltered.
Well, there were several factors that came into play, almost like a tsunami. It's commenced somewhere in 2019. I was in private practice.
By the way, Steve is an attorney, audience. I just wanted to know that you know that.
And COVID hit. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and the business wasn't generating any income. As a result, I lost the business and I lost my apartment. And I was left to the resources of friends and families, ultimately leading up to becoming homeless and living in the New York City shelter, a place, as you adequately said, if someone had told me 5 years, not 5 years, but 4 years ago that you would have been in a shelter on Bedford Avenue and Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, in a barracks, I'd have said you're tripping.
Explain to us, like I said before, that you're an attorney, and most attorneys, or people in general, don't expect to be homeless, who have a prosperous career, who is well known in the community, who is intelligent, who's articulate. I just wanted you to tell us what happened in the shelter. How was that?
But let me correct you one thing. That's the deception. Not only attorneys, but there's a lot of people, not only wage workers, but professionals.
I understand.
Psychiatrists who are hurting.
Yes, but the difference is that you are discussing it. A lot of these people.
Well, that's why I said it's a deception, because part of being any successful business person, whether they're a realtor, an accountant, an attorney, a teacher, doctor, is the image. Who goes to a psychiatrist who's going through trouble? Who goes to a realtor who's homeless? Who goes to a doctor who's sick?
Understood.
And so the professional, like myself, we hold them in.
Yes. Explain to us your experience in the shelter, the beginning and how long it took to get out of the shelter.
Okay, here's what happened to sum up the story. You know, when all of the illnesses and the surgeries and the economic catastrophe hit, I exhausted all my resources. You know, the final resources was, because I was looking for an apartment, I had some savings, I was looking for an apartment, but couldn't find one because the rents I found out was astronomical. My last apartment in a very nice neighborhood was only a G for a 2-bedroom apartment.
What year was that?
This was in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
What year was that?
In 2016.
So you was paying $1,000
Yes.
then? Oh, it's much higher now.
Entire floor through.
Yes.
In a private house. So my orientation as to rents was I got some money. I need the rent security. We good.
Because now you're in 2019.
Right.
Okay, so 2016 it was 1,000.
Yeah,
and 2019 is more than double.
You were looking at, in terms of looking for apartments, you were looking for rooms in a nice apartment, which was 1,000.
A room, yes.
A room.
Yes.
Of course you could get, and so to make a long story short, after having I stayed in a couple of Airbnbs, beautiful Airbnb, loved it, because I was going to get an apartment any minute now. But as I'm staying in the Airbnb, you're spending money, nothing's coming in. Finally, I exhausted all that money, and where to go? Ended up at the YMCA on 63rd Street off of Central Park West, because the rates were $60 a night. And like the YMCA, it was the YMCA, but it was clean. It had showers, and hey, check it out. I was by Central Park.
Mhm.
I'd never lived by Central Park,
Mhm.
Whole Foods, etc. But at that point, the money kept going down till there was nothing.
Mhm.
The question comes, what to do?
Mhm.
All you have is your
Can't
suitcase.
speak up.
So all you have is your suitcase.
Mhm.
So you enter the world of the New York homeless system.
Mhm.
And the first step is actually to go down to the intake unit, which is in Lower Manhattan. I forget the exact address, but it's in the old Bellevue Hospital on the Lower East Side.
Mhm.
And you get triage there, which essentially means they give you all of your information. Now, mind you, this was at the height of COVID.
Yes.
The height of COVID. So when I went there, they isolate you. They send me up to Harlem to a shelter, which was cool because you had your own room. And it was right on 110th Street in a renovated building. I was like, wow, this is lit,
Mhm.
right? The only issue was at the shelter, there was nothing there. You get food and everything. But you were there for 5 days. Why? For shelter, for COVID reasons, to make sure that you did not have COVID. At that point, you put on a bus.
A bus.
A bus. And you end up, depending on your age, your profession, your sex, to the various shelter locations throughout the city. They happened to send me to the Bedford Avenue Armory.
Mhm.
Talk about, I had passed that place 1,001 times. I drove my car many times and I was bothered by the squeegee men in front of the armory.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Now I'm one of them. I didn't do
Was it
squeegee.
safe?
Yes, it was safe. It was, for me, it was relatively safe. I'm a native New-Yorker, and I'm going to do the balancing test. You can't look like a deer in headlights.
But explain to me. This is what I want the audience to understand. Were you just in a room full of beds, or did you have your own?
Oh no! In the armory, at that point, you're in a dormitory.
Oh.
There's a row of beds.
Okay.
There was in a giant barrack style, because this was an armory, mind you.
Yes,
So
yes.
this is a barracks, and there was 20 beds there because of COVID. Had it not been COVID, it would have been doubled. But they had to space out the beds for COVID purposes. But other than that, you just have a bed, military bed.
So how many bathrooms? I need to visualize this.
Okay, this again is the armory, and they have basically a bathroom, which is a relatively large bathroom for mass use, right? With stalls,
Okay,
stalls for a shower or stalls to take care of your more personal business.
Mhm.
And it's relatively clean because one thing about that armory, when I was there, they had the presence of security, and the security people were pretty good.
Mhm.
They were pretty good in their demeanor and attitude towards the people.
Mhm.
Because I was there, and I was, as you know, I'm not gonna say afraid, but I was very concerned about
Mhm.
my
Safety,
situation,
yes.
safety.
Mhm.
Because on one end, people is doing crack.
In the facility.
In the crack, or down there. Of course, it's like anything else. They're not sitting in the bed smoking
Openly,
crack,
but you know it
but
was
they're by
there.
the window.
Yeah. Yes.
And like any other of these type of facilities, the guards have to balance between what to make an issue over as to what not to make the issue
Mhm,
over.
mhm.
And I'm not too proud to say, because in some way they knew that I was one of those people for some reason that didn't fit the profile.
Mhm.
And so I befriended some of the security people,
Mhm.
and on the off note say, hey, look, man, here's the deal. Here's how I got here. Look out for me.
Yes.
And it was that, we got you.
Let me ask you a question. So, did you have meals? How did that?
Oh
work?
yeah, no. In other words, basically it's barrack style, and it's the same meals that you get on Meals on Wheels if you're a
Oh, I
senior
see.
citizen, in prepackaged.
And they brought it to the.
Yeah, and then you went down to the kitchen, because again, this is an armory,
Mhm.
and you went down to the kitchen area, right,
Mhm.
and you could eat it there.
Mhm.
And in terms of access to the armory, you had to leave the barracks by 10 every morning, only to return at maybe 4. Why? because I guess they didn't want loitering and they wanted to have access for the cleaning people to come.
So what did you keep? Did you have to take your clothes with you?
No, they give you, there's a rectangular, I guess 4 by 4 feet by 3 feet locker, and you have a combination. So I put my stuff in there.
Okay, but you had to leave and then
Yes.
come back by 5.
Yes.
If you didn't make it by 5, would you lose your spot?
No. I'm talking about you couldn't loiter in the building. You don't lose your spot.
Okay.
They just locked the dorm itself,
Okay,
right? So
okay.
you could hang out in the rec area and other parts of the building.
Oh, I
But you
understand.
couldn't know where your bed was.
I understand. So how long were you there?
I was there, so after going there, after the 5 days in the COVID-related isolation, I was in this facility, which is another triage place where they send people depending on their level of disability, if any, or age, right? I was there for about 2.5 weeks.
Where was that?
Uh-huh.
That was a different location?
No, that's how long I was in
At Bedford. Okay, from Bedford, where did you go?
And then from Bedford, they transferred me to a hotel. It's the Old Comfort Hotel, which was in my case the Sunset Park section part of Brooklyn.
Okay. And you had a room to yourself, or did you have to share
You
it?
had a room and a roommate.
Okay.
There's 2 cots, so to speak, a microwave, a small box refrigerator, and in as much as it's a hotel, you have a nice,
Yeah, I understand.
pretty nice.
It's a motel, like.
bathroom, right?
So, when it comes to COVID, were you feeling secure that your roommate was?
My roommate is somebody who I could write a book about. He was a roommate from hell.
Wait a minute, but that, okay, hold that point. But it was during COVID, so
Yeah.
did he have to go through screening? Did you know
Yes,
anything?
presumably
about that?
to get there, you had already been screened.
Okay.
But they periodically tested you for screening, and in fact, my roommate got COVID, didn't tell me, and he was ultimately, and towards the end of my stay, I was going to have to be shipped out to another quarantine hotel until the Lord stepped in. I was managed to stay there, and ultimately certain paperwork. was
Wait a
put
minute, I
together.
don't understand. I don't understand why he didn't tell you he had COVID. Shouldn't the folks, his caseworker, somebody notified your caseworker that he had COVID?
The question is, when did he get COVID? How did he even know he had COVID?
Well, he had to know because you said he didn't tell you.
Well, let's put it this way. After he found out that he had it, right, you know, he was supposed to go into isolation and be moved, but he refused.
But this is my point. He knew he had COVID. Somebody else probably tested him and found out that he had
Right,
COVID. So how come you were not notified,
I was notified at some point.
but not in the
Not
when
in
he
the
first?
beginning. No, not when he.
So you could have gotten COVID.
Yes, which is why when I was notified, I was notified that he got it, and so I had to again now be put in quarantine in another hotel in a who knows what location for 5 days to make sure I didn't have COVID.
Okay, so I'm getting a picture of what happened. Let's talk about the caseworkers in the system. It seemed like it was failing.
Well, the answer is yes and no. The yes part, the no part is that they give you a caseworker, right? I forget the exact title. And that caseworker's job is essentially to see that, are you looking for a job? And are you looking for an apartment? Because they also have a housing assistant whose job it is to screen people, to refer them either to city VEPS program vouchers or to Section 8 housing, right? They work together. So you meet with them at least once a week. And they spur you on to do things. So in my case, I made the best of it, right? So for me, it worked. But for someone like my roommate, which I'm not going to mention his name, he's an issue of homelessness in and of itself, where he has come to live in a homeless situation and had been homeless and in the shelter for 2 years,
Wow.
and he liked being in the shelter. That was just the way
He did.
he lived, right? And so that's why I say was it working? The answer is yes and no. For me, I made it work.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, the resident, if they're able, they have to work with their social worker, because again, she's juggling or he's juggling who knows how many people.
Well, from my experience as a real estate broker, there's people who've been in shelters for 2 years plus. 2 years, that's a long time to be unsheltered.
I was in there 9 months total. 9
Yes,
months.
yes.
964 days exactly, I counted. 964 days,